Do you have any more in the back? What? What's he laughing at? These guys are looking for a Turbo Man?
A gentleman dog, yes.
What's up, guys? Danielle here, neutralsupport.net, and today I'm going to do two things that people have been asking for. One, I'm going to continue this mobile bike shop series. Two, today we're going to talk about inventory. So inventory is really tricky. It's one of the things that mobile businesses have a lot of struggle with trying to figure out what to carry. There's not a lot of space usually to carry the inventory. When you haven't been in business, it's hard to know what your clients will need since you haven't necessarily met them. You might be coming from an area where you've researched the clientele and have a little bit more specialization, or you're building off an existing client list that you got from a shop that closed. In those cases, I would tailor your inventory toward what you already know.
I know more than you.
But I will say, the method I'm going to discuss with you guys today is totally good for that. It's good for bike shops. It's really good for any business where you have to sell things and you're just starting out. Let's go. Let's start with a little bit of history. So in 1943, this dude named Abraham Maslow made the hierarchy of needs pyramid. So that pyramid basically said people need their base needs met before they can have spiritual needs met.
Whatever.
There are 5 levels of that. Physiological needs: safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization. I actually think that this is the perfect model for how to build your inventory when you're starting out. Let's start with physiological needs, aka what the bike needs to go.
Water, 56 beers, 2 vodkas, 4 whiskey, 6 bottles of wine, tequila, Nutella, cheese, steaks, a Milky Way.
So people really need you to make their bike work. And most of the work you get at first is going to be things like flat tires, broken chains, bikes that do not move anymore, because people are compelled to get something fixed when it breaks all the way. So your first inventory should really focus on the things that you need to make the bike go. Number one call you're going to get is flat tires, period. It doesn't matter what the format of your business is. Flat tires are the thing that get most people to know that their bike needs to be fixed, because it can't physically roll with a flat tire.
There's a hole in it, which is why there's like no air in it.
So make sure that you have rim strips, because how many flats are caused by a bad rim strip? So many. You can get away with things if you're in an emergency situation, but really having rim strips on hand is the way to go. Tubes should be common sizes that you know you will need. So these would be something like 700C road Presta valve, 700C hybrid size, so like 35 to 43 Schrader valve, maybe even some Presta valves for the handful of gravel bikes that might be in there or something like that. Maybe a little bit higher end hybrid will have a Presta valve. 26-inch Schrader valve tubes in a normal size, like 1.95 to 2.3. That's going to be a tube that I would buy in a box of 100 or a box of 50, because you'll get better pricing. It's one of the most common sizes. There's so many of those bikes out there. Keeping a small amount of other sizes like 27.5 tubes in both Presta and Schrader, 29 tubes in Presta, maybe Schrader if you're in an area where there are cheaper bikes, and kids sizes. So 12, 16, 20, 24. Make sure that you have those sizes on hand, because that is one of the number one things. With those, I'd probably get maybe 6 of each, except for 26-inch. If you're in an area that has normal people in it, 26-inch tubes they last forever. You might as well buy them in bulk and get a better margin. With that, I would match some tire choices to those sizes. So you can get like an inexpensive choice for hybrid tires from J&B, from Sunlight. You can get some Schwalbe's. If you wanted to cover e-bikes, you could get e-bike rated tires, which will be a little bit pricier, but then you could use them on both. So getting tires that are rated E25 will cover e-bikes and non-e-bikes for hybrid sizes. Get something like a WTB all-terrain. I think I sold 500 WTB all-terrains over the course of a handful of years. And I buy them 100 at a time because the price was always going up. But I knew that tire at the 2.1 size would fit every Walmart bike with 26-inch tires, every hybrid with 26-inch tires. The tread was friendly for the normal person who wasn't even really mountain biking, they wanted to do some off-road, or they wanted to ride on pavement. It just had a really good rounded tread profile. The margin was great because they were, you know, full Keystone margin on those tires. It's a really good choice. There are other choices. The nice thing about WTB and Schwalbe and all of these brands basically is that they're carried everywhere. For road tires, we typically carried Continental, but that will be a limiting factor if you don't have a QBP account. If you don't have something you can stand in to get the account like we talked about before, you won't be able to get Continental tires. So people give Continental all kinds of flack. I was able to be successful because people don't ask. If you come to them and you say, I have this tire and it's $60, they give you $60 and you fix their tire. The mobile model eliminates a lot of that. The shopping around, the internet shopping. Most of the time when you come to the house, people expect it to be a premium over the regular environment that they're in. They also are doing it because they want it done now. So I wouldn't worry too much about the pricing on your stuff. I would just price it the way that it needs to be priced. People will pay for it. So you've got tires, tubes, rim strips to cover your flats. The second thing I would carry is chains. Chain breaks, bike doesn't go. KMC makes great value level chains. So 6, 7, 8 speed chains, you can make $1 million on those because the margin's great. They're inexpensive, so people don't actually really care about paying 15 or 20 bucks for a chain. You pay around 7 or 8 bucks from a distributor. Those chains are great. I'd probably carry KMC chains up to 10 speed. And then I would carry 11 and 12 in both Shimano and SRAM, so maybe a couple of each. I do think at that higher level, those chains work better on their actual brands. KMC makes some great 11 and 12 speed chains. Whether or not they shift exactly the same, I think that Shimano systems require that narrower chain that Shimano makes. They don't require it, but it feels better, it shifts smoother with an actual Shimano chain that is paired to the teeth that they designed it around. That's controversial. I'm sure I'll get people yelling at me about that.
I know.
So one of the things that you need to carry is definitely cables and housing. If you have a Q account, I was carrying Jaguar. So Jaguar has this level of housing and cables called Sport. So I did Sport shift cable, Sport brake cable for mountain bike and road style in bulk boxes. I did Sport rolls of shift housing in 4mm and brake housing in 5mm. That covers almost everything that you're going to find. If you start working in more high end, you might need a different type of cable, or you might need to actually stock hydraulic hose if you're doing a lot of brakes. Hydraulic brakes are getting more common around everything, but really you still see a lot of traditional bikes. You see a lot of these old like rock hoppers and things like that that just won't die. They'll just never die. I don't know, they'll never die, and they'll be here like long after all of us are gone. Dinosaurs will come back and they'll be riding them. Like, you think like, oh no, I watch the magazines, I see the bikes that everybody's riding. Disc brakes, electronic shifting, all of this cable stuff is going away, but like most people own bikes that have cable driven brakes, cable driven shifters. It's all still there. So I would still stock this stuff and then I would adjust as needed. Bikes need to go and they need to stop. Speaking of stopping, right, you need brake pads. So one of the number one things you have to replace for people is brake pads. They're either noisy, or they don't exist, or they lost one, or they jammed it in something, or they melted off. So be sure to carry things like linear pole brake pads, which you can buy in bulk from all kinds of companies. Again, if you have a Q account, Jaguar. We did the Sport brake pads. It was awesome. Cool Stop makes great brake pads. Cool Stop also makes really good disc pad replacements. So if you don't want to carry like Shimano disc brake pads, which might be hard to get depending on your distributor, I'd probably go with a Cool Stop or a Jaguar substitution, again, depending on what you have access to. There are a couple of shapes of disc brake pad that are pretty common. So there's like a Shimano rectangular disc pad that's almost every single brake that you see is this rectangular pad. You can buy them from all kinds of companies, but that is a brake pad to have because it's on almost every cheap brake that you see. Until you get very, very cheap, is just this rectangular pad. Tektro uses them, Shimano uses them. A lot of these brands will use them, so you'll cover a big variety of disc brakes. I'd probably still try to carry something that's compatible with like Shimano's road disc and mountain bike disc, maybe 2 to 4 pairs of the most common ones, just to have something, because you're gonna need a bike's worth, and just in case you have 2 bikes worth in a day, the goal is that you have enough stuff to fix the bike that you have on that day, because you can adjust after you know the bike that you worked on. If you use a part that you only have one or two of on a day, then you can put that in an order. Don't feel like you necessarily need to order everything. It might be inconvenient for you at first because you might have to go back somewhere, like you only have 4 of a certain brake pad and you needed 6 that day. That's an inconvenience, but you didn't know before that day that you would need so many, and then you can over order next time so that you can order in bulk, get a better margin, charge the same price, make more money. Really, that's kind of the whole game. We're really just trying to stock like minimum that you would need to get started. So the last bit that gets a little bit tricky is spokes. If you break a spoke, it's really hard to ride it without that spoke usually, and it's a little hard to carry every size of spoke. So what I recommend and what I did in the beginning was I actually bought a Hazan spoke threader. It's not the best spoke threader, but I bought that and some 305 black and silver straight gauge spokes. That gave me the opportunity to fix many things because a straight gauge spoke can be cut to length, thread it with the Hazan threader, and I'll give you a tip about the Hazan threader. It is fabulous, but the little crank, sometimes it's hard to get that to actually catch. So the only real way to use that efficiently is to actually hook a drill to the end instead of using the handle, and just drill, undrill, drill, undrill, and do your 4 or 5 passes to get the threads rolled in. That spoke cutter plus those spokes fit in a very small area. You can start to pick up more specialty spokes over time as you see what you need, and maybe carry some double butted of the most common lengths you're running into within 3 to 5 millimeters, because you can actually cut a double butted spoke and thread the end also, as long as you're ahead of the butt. That will save you a bunch of space and a bunch of guesswork, because if you don't buy just blanks or the 305 straight gauge and you try to guess and you're wrong, you end up with very expensive boxes of spokes. DT has actually started to sell 100 count boxes, so it's a pretty big mistake if you get a size that you just don't need, because then you get stuck with a bunch of spokes. Ask me, I have probably 60 boxes of spokes. Most of them are sizes that I needed at the time, so they're not full boxes, but then I ended up in the future getting a fill wood cutter and all of my life's problems went away. So I don't recommend getting a fill wood cutter right off the bat. They're kind of pricey. But if you came across one that was used and cheap like I did, grab it. It'll save you so much time. It'll save you a bunch of money and a bunch of space, which is part of the reason why we're so concerned about things. So that about covers the physiological needs of the bicycle. Things that when they break, people stop being able to use the bike. There are other things that can catastrophically break, of course, but most of your calls are going to be for this category of things. So you need to be really prepared for this group. Let's move on to safety and security. So people want to be safe. So the bike's already rolling, already rides, doesn't stop the way they want it to. The brakes kind of stink or something like that. So this is like the next tier of bicycle parts. This is where I would stock things like affordable wheels. So maybe a couple of common sizes of wheels from like Wheelmaster or a similar brand from Q, because you'll run into things where the bike doesn't go, or the bike isn't safe because the wheel is tacoed or the spokes are starting to pull through the rim, so you're getting those cracks. You'll have an option for those people to get the bike back rolling safer than it was, or working better than it was, and doesn't break the bank. So these are for the people who just want their bike to work. They want to be safe, and they have a problem that is maybe bigger than they thought. So there are a lot of good in-house wheels that are being machine built in these warehouses at these distributors. JMB is a good one. They have lots and lots of wheels. So I would carry a few of the common sizes for that. This is for the customer that's not very particular. So you'll have customers that say, I don't know, I guess I have a 26-inch wheel, or they'll tell you something like I held a tape measure up to it and it's 16.5 inches wide. Like, they'll give you some number that they pulled from nothing. They don't really know what they need, so you're giving them a budget wheel that actually works well. This is also the category that I would put things like bearings. So bearings can catastrophically fail and keep the bike from working, but I wouldn't put them necessarily in the physiological need category most of the time. I think bearings are more like bottom brackets, headsets, hub bearings. They'll get crunchy worn out, rusty, and the experience on the bike will be worse or leading towards failure, and you'll find those things. The bike could work better, it could work safer, so you'll be able to replace things like headset bearings when they'll notch and the handlebars will turn and stick in a direction. You'll have the answer for that. You can be able to stock maybe an organizer of some of the more common wheel bearings, some cartridge bearings. If you're in an area with normal people who just ride bikes casually for fun, probably stock some caged headset bearings, some caged bottom bracket bearings. There are a few really common sizes for hub bearings, like 6801 and things like that. I'd probably just stock some of the ABEC 3 level normal people bearings for that case. This is also the category where I would put things like stems. Stems could fit in a lot of categories, but people typically want to change their stem for comfort. So I'd probably keep a few shorter and higher angled stems around. If you need a stem that's more specifically fit, I'd probably just make it a special order. A lot of this has to do with the format of your business. So if the format is you go there and it was a lot of work to get there and you don't want to go back come hell or high water and you can't take the bike, you might want to stock more of these things than maybe I'm telling you to. But if you have a system where it's like, hey, I came to the house, it turns out there's more wrong with your bike than we thought, but I'm willing to order you something, or I'm willing to come back, then you can adjust for that and come back and fix the bike. It's hard to order a lot of things like this because there are so many different sizes. It's kind of like a derailleur hanger. It would be hard for you right now to stock derailleur hangers because there are 307 different types. That's not a real number, but it is at least 307, but there might be more. With stuff like that, the whole rule that I went by was I need one, I order two. And that way I have one for stock, and I know that I've used it before, so there's a really good chance that I'll need it again in the future. This is for anything that's like sub $150 or something like that, depending on your budget. Set a number, order a bottom bracket. If you need a bottom bracket, order two. If you need two bearings, order four. So basically double whatever it is that you need to order because you know you needed it. So it's perfect that you could build your inventory with things that you know that you've used. Take that with a grain of salt. There will be weird stuff that you know is weird. You have a gut, right? You can feel somebody ordered some weird like strong light thing that you had to order on eBay because they don't make that stuff anymore. Don't order two of those. But if it's a square taper, 68 millimeter, 110.5 spindle bottom bracket, there's like a really good chance you'll need another one. So just order two. They were like $15, so it doesn't matter that much. And then you'll have it next time. You won't have to make two trips. So this is the category where I also put things like cheap, affordable grips, cheap, affordable grip tape, maybe even an affordable seat option. Hard for seats to be like a safety item, but you know, sometimes seats are a safety item. So I wouldn't put too much investment in money. Like this is not where I would put fancy grips, because this is where I would put, hey, I'm working on your bike, your grips are disintegrated and it is unsafe for you to touch them, or I feel like they're gonna fly off the bike while you're riding. This is the category that those should go in. For grips, I would probably do like lizard skins. We bought lizard skins in boxes of 100 also because lizard skins grips, amazing margin, really nice grips, just the easiest sale in the world, like $10. It's so easy to be like, hey, you need grips, they're $10, and people are like, sign me up, put the grips on. They also don't move around, so they make them small enough diameter that when you put them on the bars, you don't get twisty grips. Lock-on grips were kind of the solution for that, but lizard skins, even the friction grips, don't really move. They're really good. So moving on to love and belonging, I feel like this is the category that people probably look at the pyramid and they're like, what does love and belonging even have to do with my inventory? This is bike friends. I want to be associated with something cool and I want everyone to know it. So this is where I would put things like shop kit, t-shirts, swag.
Guess who won that plain blue t-shirt?
Bottles, anything that you can do. Create a riding club on Strava. do things that let people engage in your business. This isn't necessarily a third tier thing to, like, you should probably do this immediately, but I think for people to engage, it's a third tier thing. You fix their bike so that it rolls. You also went above and beyond, and you told them that their grips were dangerous, and you replaced their grips, and it wasn't $1 million. So they have a lot of indebtedness to you at this point because you've taken care of 2 tiers of their pyramid, and now they care enough about you to take part in the third, which is, I want to wear a shirt that has your name on it. I want a hat that has your name on it. I want to tell my friends that you took care of my physical needs, that you also took care of my future needs. So love and belonging can translate into a lot of things, but building a community around your shop is really where it's at.
All right.
Self-esteem. We're getting into these things and it's like, self-esteem on my bike. Like, what are you talking about? You all know that guy who bought a bunch of stuff and you're like, you don't need that. That doesn't make your bike faster. Why are you even buying it? It's oil slick titanium bolts. It's a teal stem with a pink faceplate. It's I9 wheels with colored spokes. It's my grips need to match my seat, need to match my seat collar, need to match my kit. These are the things that the bike doesn't need to work, but they build up the rider's sense of self on the bike. So the self-esteem, my bike is awesome. Everyone thinks my bike looks cool. So it's kind of more like bike esteem, but we'll go with it. Stocking things like this is more something to do after you know your clientele. You know what they're gonna want. So you do a lot of mountain bikes, you do a lot of I9 stuff. Having a handful of stems in all their different colors, that might be having like faceplate and stems so that you can mix and match to customize the bike. Carrying grips that are different colors, carrying grip tape that's like Supacaz grip tape or lizard skins in a bunch of colors. Really, this is where people start decorating their bikes. So I wouldn't initially stock tons of this because you just don't know what people want, but you start to see your clients doing similar things. So the internet really makes a lot of choices. People think they're making their own choices, and then you go to a group ride and you're like, all these people's bikes look the same. And that is because they don't realize they're consuming media that's telling them what to buy all the time. I'm probably telling you what to buy right now and you just don't even realize it. So stocking like some salsa seat collars in different colors or different things that kind of just bling out the bike.
For the lady and gentleman who has everything.
Now we've climbed this peak together, right? And we've reached the top. The top is self-actualization. So self-actualization really translates into custom. So anything in the self-actualization category, in my opinion, should be ordered. So this is things like custom wheels, custom frames, decaling, ride wrap kits that are specific to a bike, full carbon handlebars. When you start to get into that experience where you're really customizing a bike or building a bike from scratch for a person, it's unrealistic to stock those things. They're very expensive. There are lots of types of them, and a lot of times you're starting to get into fit. So you need it to be exactly the length or exactly the width, the right bar clamp, the right C-post diameter. Those things are tough to keep on hand because it's a high financial investment to wait for someone to need that exact thing. So finding yourself in a position where you can order from a warehouse that gets to you relatively quickly, whether it be QBP, harder to get, or JMB, one of these people to get you the thing that you need quickly, the person that's getting the custom experience will be happy to plan with you. They love that. They will want to take the time to plan out what they're going to get, to trust you with the ordering, and to feel like they're getting a custom experience. That customer is at the peak. It's also the smallest part because in terms of inventory, that's not something to stock. You will learn over time who your clientele is, and that will help you determine these 5 levels of things based on who you serve. Some people will serve the more high-end. Some people will encounter a lot of people riding bikes that we might call bicycle-shaped objects. Meet people where they are, attract the clientele that you want, and stock the things that you need to work on their bikes. Over the course of 10 years of doing mobile business, I completely altered what I stocked. And by about maybe the third year, I really had a groove. So I developed a way to get the inventory, to stock what people needed, and to evaluate bikes before I went so that I had time to get parts ahead of time if I knew enough. We all know that people are not reliable at diagnosing their own bikes, so you go for a bottom bracket, it's a headset. Things like that happen. Having a system in place to deal with that is important, but don't overstock yourself right off the bat. Take a little bit of discomfort in not having everything so that you can build up to everything that you need without wasting money. If you have a bunch of money, I mean, why are you watching these videos? This isn't for you. But if you were like me and you started on a really tight budget, building up to your inventory is the only way to do it smartly. So thanks, Maslow, for figuring all of this out during the war. I hope you liked this video, and I hope that you find it useful in planning your inventory in a way that doesn't stretch your budget further than you need to right off the bat. It will help you grow into a successful business that only stocks what you really need and doesn't end up with a lot of stuff that sits in there for 10 years until you throw it away.
All right, let's get out of here.
If you want to see more videos like this, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I want to give a shout out to Jay, Sacramento Bicycle Kitchen, for this sweet shirt and some other swag. I really enjoy it. I love this shirt. I wear it all the time. If you want some neutral support swag, you can head over to the website. I've got shirts, hats, aprons, all kinds of cool stuff. It kind of helps me keep doing the videos. As you can see, I'm spending a lot of time traveling for work, which is cool in itself, and I love it, but it also keeps me from doing the videos as frequently as I want. I'm working on it, I promise. But I really thank you guys for watching. I thank you for your support, and as always, I hope you have a good day.